Hello and welcome to the Radiant Soul podcast with your host, Shirley. Did you forget just how amazing, beautiful, and powerful you are, my love? Did you forget how innately worthy, deserving, and lovable you are, and how infinitely abundant and rich you are as a soul living right now in this moment? It's okay. We live in a world where we are constantly bombarded with messaging and marketing that tells us we are lacking, incapable, or not enough. This is the podcast to disrupt that pattern. We're going to bulldoze some beliefs and behaviors that don't serve us, and we're going to remind you just how perfect, whole, and awesome you are right now, helping you live your best life with full agency and remembrance of why you are here. I'm Shirley, a lifelong dedicated radiant soul, and I'll be your host as we journey deep and have fun learning how to live a radiant soul life that is your best life. But first, I wish to acknowledge, and please forgive any mispronunciation, that this podcast is being recorded in my home in Montreal, also known as Tiohtià:ke, which lies on unceded Indigenous lands and waters, which the Kanien'kehá:ka Nation is recognised as the custodians, and I honour them, this land, and my ability to bring this podcast to you from here. Thank you for joining me, and let's dive into today's episode. Welcome to this week's episode, and I wanted to talk today about manifestation. And what I want to talk about specifically is this desire to manifest and be a manifester and manifest what we want, which is often to do with money or to do with wealth or love or some external thing to us. And I want to talk about how we've kind of got that all wrong. And I'm talking from experience too, right? Because I've also been in that. I've also been in that desire to manifest and, thinking that I've got to do all these different things to become a great manifester. And basically, the whole thing is completely messed up and wrong because you already are manifesting absolutely everything in your existence. There is nothing that you're not manifesting. And so I actually don't really like the word manifest, because manifest sort of implies something's going to suddenly appear in your field of vision, we're going to literally magic something out of thin air. And while the universe can kind of work like that, most of us aren't of that vibrational level and frequency and ability to accept that. If it did, we're not in that level of Jesus state where we can suddenly have 1,000 loaves of bread and fish and wine and out of nothing. So the word manifest in itself is a problem. And so what I actually like to think about instead is that you're a creator and that you are a co-creator, and that everything in your existence is part of your creation. It is part of what you're putting out there, your vibrational state. And the difference is when you manifest something, or when you create a life that you really love, when you create a life from soul, it's about being intentional. It's about being intentional in what you want to create, in what you want to keep in your life, in what you want to remove from your life, in what you want to invite in, and what you want to experience more of. And it's that makes that's the difference between a life that's beautiful and full of your desires and one that's closed off. And our main desire is for expansion and growth and evolution, right? If we're not doing that, we're kind of we're sort of going towards death. We're going towards closure, closing down, saying no to life. And what we want to be doing is saying yes to life. So our desires become a really potent tool in the process of that, because they can give us guidance as to what we actually, where we want expansion. But what happens in the sort of law of attraction world that I find is that we get so caught up on the physical manifestations that we miss the journey, we miss the flow, we miss the important part of the process, which is the feeling state. And with all of our desires, with all of the manifest things that we want to manifest and we're working towards, it's always a feeling state at the end of it that we're aiming towards, right? We're never actually aiming for the physical thing. While yet it's beautiful, yeah, having $1 million in the bank is what everyone, oh, I want to be a millionaire. Of course, it's wonderful. It makes life easy, but actually the feeling state is one of ease, one of freedom, one of stability, security, all of these different things, right? Which are feeling states. They're not actually the thing that they're not actually money. It's the byproduct of having money. And you can kind of work backwards with this with your vibration, right? Like, what are those feeling states? And so what I'd like to think of, in terms of the law of attraction, it can be very focused on material, physical things. And it's to the detriment, right? Because then what people do is, if it doesn't show up immediately or it doesn't show up soon enough, it's like you start to berate yourself. You start to think that you're doing something wrong. You start to think that, you're no good at manifesting. You're no good at this stuff. Or you've got to change your frequency. Maybe you're too miserable. You've got to be positive. And that's where, these states of spiritual bypassing come in, right? Because it's like not trusting that you're already a creator, right? You're already creating everything in your experience. You're already having these experiences, but it's about not being a reactor to life and not being a passive, unconscious person, right? So when we talk about awakening and consciousness, it's about bringing awareness and consciousness to your everyday choices and your everyday reactions to life. And like, can you limit those reactions, or can you observe those reactions from a perspective of the unprejudiced observer? I mean, this is one of the greatest tools I was taught as a homeopath, right? To be the unprejudiced observer, which means to just sit and watch and not judge, not bring any judgment, any assumptions to what you see, what's going on, but just witness, right? And that's the state of awareness. And so consciousness, it's not this like idealized thing that one day you're going to be like reach like Tibetan monk status where everything is suddenly amazing and your life is perfect and whatever, and you're suddenly conscious. Like, it's not, it's a moment by moment decision. Do you live in reaction to life, or do you live intentionally to what is right and true for you and what you actually want to bring forth and create? And that's where the magic lies, right? That's where consciousness is something that becomes an everyday part of your life. It's where spirituality and everyday life meet. It's like the conjunction, right? Because your immediate physical experience is constantly reflecting back to you, and you then have an opportunity to either react and respond to that direct experience in a very reactionary way, which is what most of us do, right? We allow those emotions and it's almost like we're buffeted by life, right? Things happen and we're buffeted, and and we lose we lose the state of the thing that we want, and our focus shifts. And all that life is doing is reflecting back to us what our internal state is. What are we focusing on? And, like people who want good health, like if you're focusing on healing, if you're focusing on, I'm constantly healing myself, I've got to heal myself, I've got to heal myself, you're going to live in a perpetual world where you need to heal yourself. You're going to create that experience where over and over and over and over again, you need to heal yourself. And what life is doing is showing you that. It's like a beautiful mirror, right? There's a beautiful reflection that this is what you're creating. And all you need to do is focus on the other thing. Like, well, what's vitality? What's well-being? What's, every time I'm eating, I'm just focusing on nourishing my body, fueling my body so that it's like healthy, it's vibrant, it's energized. These are very different states and of focus and intention than I must heal myself, I must heal myself. And it's a subtle difference, right? But that's the beauty of life in the playground, right? Like, life is a playground that we get to sort of sample taste, we get to explore and experience, and we get to fine tune our alignment. And I think there's a real like desire to escape the physical 3D world, but we all chose to be here as souls to experience this like very tangible process of creation, right? If you think of being a creator, I mean, you can be a spirit creator all you like in spirit form and never actually experience what it's like to sculpt clay, or, you know, like that physical, tangible creation. And yet that's exactly what life is, right? We get to mold and shape and create something with our intention, with our focus. And that's what consciousness is, right? It's like bringing your awareness to those very minute, subtle like differences in your awareness, in your focus, in your intention of the day, and where your thoughts are. And you know, this is, Abraham Hicks talks about this all the time. It's like, you know, they saying, you know, don't focus going upstream, right? You need to come into the going downstream. And what that tends to get translated into is, oh, I must stay positive all the time, I must stay positive. No, it's like you must just tweak, like, where are you focusing on the wrong thing? Like, where are you focusing on constantly never having enough money, instead of like, oh my God, like, look how abundant I am. Look that I have a roof over my head. Look that I've been able to feed myself this week. Look that I've got clothes to wear. How abundant and lucky am I? You know, and if sometimes money is not always easy for everyone to manifest, but you can manifest other things. Like, you have clearly created a life. You have created a chance to listen to this podcast or to watch this YouTube video, and you can create and see what you've created, right? It's a continuous process. It's not a done one-off done deal. And this is where people get stuck, right? It's like 20 minutes of meditation, and then they spend the rest of the day back in the state of complete reactionary, you know, being buffeted by life, thinking of all the terrible things, and it undoes all the work, right? But that's why it's a daily, moment by moment practice. And it's not about berating yourself if you think about, like, you know, the negative thing you don't want. Like, it's just normal, right? It's life telling you how to fine tune your being, how to course correct, how to just come back to what you want, you know. And it's really can be subtle sometimes. And like when it is subtle, like, you know, you're getting closer and closer and closer to it, right? Because that course correction is even less of a thing to course correct. And so that's why, you know, I don't really like the word manifestation, because I'm a creator. I create my life. I co-create my life with soul, with source, in alignment with like the source, God's will for what is right for me and for me, my expression and my greatest expression on this planet. And I get to see the physical results of what I am creating, and I get to fine tune. And when even with other people, like, if, you know, for myself, even with my son, there's times when I find it very difficult. My son doesn't really have much for life at the moment, and I find that really hard. And it's actually, you know, the more I worry about him and the more I get upset by that state, the more he almost goes into it. And when I intentionally just disconnect completely and say, you know what, like, his life, his being, his soul, leave, you know, and I hand it back to God. What happens is I see this flourishing, and it doesn't always happen straight away, right? Often with my son, I get a very direct experience where he'll have a complete meltdown and be very emotional, be very upset, and everything will be going wrong for him. And always, like, at the end, it's like it was like what he needed to break through to the next level of happiness, of completion, of growth for himself, right? And the less I am involved in that, and the more I just hold that vision for him of joy or happiness or whatever it is I want for him, and don't take responsibility but pass it back to himself and to God, then I see that magic, right? And you become the creator. You start to realize that you can very intentionally create your state, and that can then be reflected back. But more importantly than that, it's about creating that state. It's about creating what you want to feel in each moment. Do you want to feel like you're on a perpetual hamster wheel of healing? Probably not. You might, maybe you do. Maybe that's like, to get over an illness and conquer it makes you feel good about yourself. Maybe it is a good thing. But if you actually really want well-being and health and vitality, then those are the things you need to be literally in your brain like all day long. You know, that's what you need to be putting the most amount of your attention on. And that's why we get this beautiful experience, right, where we get life showing up in us, like in front of us, so that we can make those course corrections. We can see, oh yeah, like I am off alignment here, I am off alignment here, like, and just coming back like, oh yeah, I want to focus on health and vitality. What would feel like vibrant and like well-being right now? Maybe it's just sitting and having a cup of tea and looking out the window or watching the birds fly by. Like, what is that state of just well-being I can create in myself right now? Like, how can I feed myself today that feels wholesome and nutritious and nourishing for my mind, body and soul? You know, and that's very different than I must eat a salad because I've got to stay thin and healthy. It's like, how can I nourish my mind, body and soul? And then when you sit down to eat, may this food nourish my mind, body and soul. May this food, you know, bring energy and vitality to my body, or joy to my like system and my being. May the pleasure, the delight, the taste, sensation be a really beautiful experience of wholeness and well-being. And it's like, how can you just course correct? How can you just course correct over and over and over again? And that's what consciousness is. It's being conscious of those little minute choices that we make in our brains every single day to focus on this versus that, this versus that. And don't worry if you don't get this straight away. That's why we have a whole lifetime to practice this, right? That's, you know, I need to practice this. My boyfriend sometimes goes, oh yeah, you're such a great manifester. Have you heard yourself right now? And it's like, oh yes, obviously I need to pull back a minute and just course correct, and sometimes we will have things that we can't course correct on, and it's like so difficult for us. And in those points, it's like, turn away, focus on something completely different. Take yourself out for a walk, take yourself off and do like some movement, dancing practice, anything that kind of just takes you out of that situation, so that you're not like very, you know, we can end up sort of in this tunnel vision of like focus that can be very negative and destructive. And it's just, when that happens, the best practices in the world aren't going to help you change that. Sometimes the best practices in the world are to quit, stop, go do something completely different, go watch a film, go watch a movie, go eat popcorn and whatever. It's like, just swap it out, because only then can you take those moments to course correct and realize, oh yeah, you know, I was probably really thinking the wrong things then. I was probably really going down the tunnel of very negative thoughts. And that's what Abraham Hicks calls like the going against the stream. But that going against the stream, you know, it can often feel like a torrential river, like being caught in the stream sometimes, because the negative power of those thoughts can be so powerful and so invasive that sometimes the best way to do is to just get out of that river, like just go walk on the side, like remove yourself from the situation and stop beating yourself up. Like, you know, that's the other thing. It's like, you're never gonna find consciousness if you beat yourself up every time you lose consciousness, or, you know, every time you have a lower vibration. It's like this whole belief that like low vibration is bad. No, low vibration is a teaching mechanism for our souls to go, oh yeah, like that's that, right? It feels shit. That's the emotional guidance system saying, oh, I'm thinking a thought that isn't actually in alignment with what God thinks in this moment, or with truth, like with universal love. I'm thinking a thought that isn't serving me. It isn't taking me towards what I want, or bringing, so I don't even like that expression. It isn't making me magnetic to what I want. It's the opposite. And that's why it feels bad. That's why I feel cranky right now, and miserable and upset or hurt or devastated, or whatever that emotion is, because that thought that you're thinking isn't guiding and helping you in that moment so it's not guiding, that's, I got this wrong, sorry. Like, it isn't magnetizing to you the vibrational state and the well-being that you want. It's taking you away from that. And so that's what consciousness is, right? It's just like, oh yeah, that's that moment. I saw then where I felt rubbish and what thought was the process. And can I think a better thought right now? Can I just think, anything better about this situation? And if I can't think anything better about this situation, I can ask God to see it in a different way. But the best thing I can do is walk away from it. Ask God to let me see it in a different way, and then walk away from it. Think something completely different. Distract yourself. Give yourself something that's going to make you feel good, because that's what we want. And we all want to feel good. And that's consciousness, right? Is choosing to feel good. And it can sometimes be a really difficult choice. It can sometimes be a really difficult choice to choose to feel good. And you'd think that sounds stupid, right? Of course I want to feel good. Why would I not want to feel good? But, from experience with myself, it's like, when I'm in that state, I will often stay in the bad feeling, and I will go there and I will go back there and I will go back there. And it's like, I really have to almost just say, enough, like, quit. I'm going to just enjoy this moment, and or find anything to just enjoy it in the moment. And it's not about feeling bad that I feel bad. It's just about being aware. Oh yeah, that isn't in alignment. That isn't such a good thought. That isn't really how, like, God sees the situation. He sees this very differently to me. And like, so maybe I just ask, how can I see it that way? And that's consciousness. It's just minute by minute, moment by moment. Like, what are you aware of? What are you thinking? Like, what are those thoughts you're making? And that's how you fine tweak, and that's how you become a co-creative. It's very, within very intentional thought process. And you have to be more committed to feeling good than you are to feeling bad. And the only way to know if you're more committed to feeling good rather than feeling bad is, how many of your thoughts in the day make you feel bad? How many of your thoughts in the day are going towards the thing you don't want, versus how many of your thoughts in a day make you feel good? How many of your thoughts in the day are really focused on the thing you want? And, I'll go back to the metaphor of healing. Am I focusing on healing continually? Because if I am, I'm also double creating a life where I need healing, which means I'm creating illness to heal, trauma to heal, patterns to heal. Versus, am I creating well-being? Are my choices today just supporting my body, supporting my well-being, supporting my mind, body, and soul? What can I do in this moment to support that? And so that's consciousness. That's manifestation, which I don't like that word. I don't, that's creating. It's co-creating your life with intentionality. And when you do that, life becomes this playground, and you're not buffeted by it. You then start to see that it's always supporting you. And even when bad things happen, it's like causing things to come to the surface, come to be seen, brought to the light. And it's causing, you to see things in a different way, or to learn a new perspective, or to fine tune your alignment even more, to fine tune your consciousness even more. So that's what I've got for you today. I hope this has been useful. Sometimes my thoughts are a little bit more scattered when I start talking than I think they are when before I start talking. And that's life, right? That's about emotional alignment. Our thoughts are scattered, and we just have to come back. We just have to come back. We just have to come back. And you might need to do it 100 billion times a day. And for the first you know, 1, 2, 3 years you start doing this, it's like whatever, like be easy on yourself, right? Because we're not programmed to do this. This isn't being taught in schools, right? We're being taught continually to ignore what's going on inside ourselves, and to react to life, and to, you know, to be buffeted by life, and life's terrible, and we're being told all this stuff, and it's like, it's not true. Like, it's just, all of this is for us to just keep coming back. And everything, like all the tools I teach, like in my classes, in this podcast, all of these are tools to keep coming back, to keep reminding you. But essentially, it's just a decision, right? It's really a minute little decision to think and act with intention. And whatever you can do to create that intention and to remind yourself of that intention. You know, so one of the things I suggest is just when you do an activity multiple times a day. So for example, I say, like, when you go to the bathroom, just taking those moments to be mindful, to just, to be still, to be present, to be aware, to just close all thoughts for just a second or two, and just rest in that peace and that awareness. And like, the more you do that, then the more you become aware, and the more you become the unprejudiced observer of the thoughts going on in your head, and the less then you're associated with them, and the less you're associated with the emotions, and the less you're associated with the reactions. And then you might see yourself react, and you might see the reactions and be curious, right? It's like you almost are like removed from yourself, and you can see your own reaction, and you can then be curious, well, what is going on here, and what thoughts am I thinking that are making me react this way, and can I see this differently? So that's what I have for you today. I hope you've enjoyed it. I love you lots, and I wish you a beautiful week. Bye-bye. To find out more about how to work with me, then visit soulartbyshirley.com, where you can find out about commissioning your very own uniquely channeled radiant soul painting, purchase soul art and prints directly from the art shop, or join one of my courses. And if you love this podcast, then please share with your friends, leave a review, and hit the subscribe button so you won't miss another episode. Plus, as a thank you for leaving a review, take a screenshot of your posted review and send it to soulartbyshirley@gmail.com to receive a free copy of your Radiant Soul Hypnosis. Thank you for listening to the Radiant Soul Podcast, and as always, I love you.